Thanks to Joe Douglas's free agency, the New York Jets are set up very nicely for their number 10 overall pick. Could they trade up? Could they wind up sticking and making a selection at number 10? Or could they trade down? I've got 3 options as far as trade downs are concerned. Let's take a look at them and give me which one you think is the best.
J-E-T-S, Jets, Jets, Jets!
All right, guys, I'm excited to get into this particular video. The trade down options, 3 options that I think could be legitimate options for the New York Jets for their number 10 overall pick if we want to slide down. Now, the way I did this is not by trying to string together all these different potential theories. I do love doing that. I do think there's far more opportunities potentially with other teams that I did not include on this that could be coming up for a quarterback or a different player along those lines. But the way I structured this, it's 3 different trades, and they all provide different levels of like, we didn't quite get what we wanted, but we got to trade down. And I want to see where the fan base is. So there's going to be 3 different options here. There's going to be a moderate trade down, a decent trade down, and then like maybe a little bit further than we're kind of comfortable feeling with here. So I'm excited to see where you guys feel on this and what players you would potentially want. That's something I do want to know. If you guys see these trade downs, maybe give me a list of the 3 who you would pick at each one of these trade downs. I think that is something interesting that we could get into. But without further ado, let's hop into the discussion points. So which trade down would you prefer? The first option here is a pretty, satisfying one for myself if I have to be, all thought processes being equal. It's the Broncos and the Raiders, both division rivals, both need quarterbacks. Obviously, the Raiders have Gardner Minshew and Aidan O'Connell, so they're set up a little bit differently than the Broncos, who just have Jarrett Stidham. Now, I do think there's a situation where Zach Wilson could be wind up in Denver with some sort of pick swap or something along those lines. But that would be probably a more minor piece to this whole situation. Denver coming up for their quarterback, they don't have a second-round pick, so they can't even offer the second-round pick. And because they don't have a second-round pick, it's not like they're trading up from that second-round pick into the back end of the first round to get their quarterback. That's where I think both these teams might feel the need to go that route. But because of that, I do think Denver's either going to try and trade all the way up that they can, but they're going to be competing with the Minnesota Vikings. Remember, they have 2 first-round picks. It's going to be very tough to compete with that type of draft capital. From the Raiders side of things, little less pressing, but they may feel the need to hop in front of their division rivals to kind of cock block them from getting the quarterback of their future, while also setting themselves up potentially for their quarterback future if they don't believe in Aidan O'Connell and they don't think Gardner Minshew is a potential long-term fit here. Now, I have the Jets getting a 3rd-round pick back for either one of these 2 teams. And in the past, I had considered, maybe it's not even a pick. Maybe it's a player like a Devontae Adams for them to come up, or maybe it's a Courtland Sutton for them to come up. Now that we've added Mike Williams, I think that's probably a little less likely, and we may be looking at some type of trade down that would involve getting a 3rd-round pick as opposed to a 2nd-round pick. I understand there's a premium to it, but a 2nd-round pick to only fall back 2-3 spots, I think is going to be a little too rich. And there may be teams just in front of us, like the Bears, maybe the Falcons, that could want to trade down for similar, words are hard today, similar draft compensation. So the Jets can't get too greedy, I think, with that number 10 pick. Obviously, if they're sitting on the clock and no one's made the move, then sure, whatever. But I think there's some conversations that have to happen prior to that. So trade down number 1, you get the 3rd-round pick. So you have 2 3rd-round picks. You don't have that so exclusive 2nd-round pick that you want, but you at least have some package picks that you can do to bring yourself back up into the 2nd. So that's trade option 1. Trade option number 2. This is the Jacksonville Jaguars sitting at pick number 17. The idea for them, they may want to come up and get the best possible cornerback. Now, the Colts are projected, I think, to be the first team really in play for cornerback. You can probably argue some of the teams just behind the Jets in the event they don't try to trade up for quarterbacks or things of those natures, or things of that nature. And they will give you, Jacksonville will give you the 2nd-round pick, but in order to do that, you have to give up the 3rd-round pick in order to slide back. And it's one of those situations where the Jets really want to get that 2nd-round pick and really want to slide down, and they're not too, thrilled with making the pick. The quantity of players is more valuable than maybe the quality of player that you would get at number 10. That's another position that you may feel could be the right way to go. Like, hey, do you like everyone in the 3rd? Is that where you want to make that pick, or does that 2nd-round pick provide that much more value in getting either an offensive weapon or an offensive lineman? So trade number 2, very interesting. Trade number 3 is with the Philadelphia Eagles, the connection with Joe Douglas, obviously the Bryce Huff, Hassan Reddick news. There's always conversations going on between these two teams. And this is falling all the way back to 22. So that's the downside here. You're falling out of the top 20 to get that oh-so exclusive second-round pick. Now, the Eagles do have 2 second-round picks, so you're, let's call it the highest of the two of them. I think it's pick 50 is what they wind up having. But in this scenario, you now have a first-round pick, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, 2 fourth-round picks, and then whatever else the rest of the draft is. And I like this route. I like it a lot, but you start to get into this really murky situation of like, okay, who's available at that point? Because you're probably not getting one of the top offensive linemen like a Fontenot, like a Latham, like a Fuaga, like a Fashanu, but you're probably in that realm of like a Tyler Guyton and a Marius Mims. Maybe you go with a wide receiver at that particular point in time, and it could be someone like, I don't know if Brian Thomas Jr. makes it that far down, but you're probably looking at like a Troy Franklin, A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin, someone along those lines at that particular pick. So when I look at all three of these, and when I did this on a poll question for the last live chat or live stream that I did, and the chat was basically 33%, 33%, 33%, like across the entire board on this. So I'm curious to see where the comment section actually falls. Now, as far as players, I would look to make player selections that I would look to make at each of these particular trade down options. And I'll kind of give you what my favorite one of these is. At the first trade option, if I fall down to number 12 or number 13, I'm really hoping it's either going to be Rome Odunze or Brock Bowers falling to the Jets at that point in time. If someone were to hop in front of us, or at least maybe take a player in front of us, like let's say the Chargers trade down to 11 and the Jets, swing down to 12 or 13 and the Chargers are looking for a right tackle, I'm good with the weapon. I'm good with the offensive lineman, but at least we pick up that additional third-round pick. So that basically does not change the player we would predict to be there for the New York Jets, I think, if you were to make trade 1. So that's very, very exciting. In trade package number 2, pick 17, I don't think Bowers is going to last that long. That would be amazing if you could get him at pick 17 at that particular point in time. Fontenot is very, very interesting. I think you could also wind up with one of the tackles that could be falling that far. This could be a really nice spot for Brian Thomas Jr. as well. So there are a few guys that I do really like if you were to come back that far. And if you get the second round pick, I think it's pick number 43 is what the Jaguars have, or 48, whatever the number is. You can have that pick and select an interior offensive lineman, a guard or a guard tackle. Maybe it's a Patrick Paul out of Houston. There's going to be some guys in that second round that I like from a tackle perspective, and I do like from a wide receiver perspective. I like Xavier Legette. I like Tez Walker, Roman Wilson. There's a lot of potential wide receivers, Malachi Corley. Where are these guys going to go? Are they going to be third round, second round? Cooper Beebe is another name you could throw out there. Lots of potential options if you could sneak into that second round. Now, as far as pick number 3, I mentioned it a little bit. I think Tyler Guyton or Amarius Mims, either one of those two would sort of be where my mind is kind of spinning. If Fontenot were to make it to number 22, that would probably be my pick, the guard tackle hybrid. He's kind of elevated on my list as we slide down a little bit more and more because you can address weapon in the second round. I really like the weapons that are going to be available in that second round. Now, having the second round pick, if you were to go with the offensive lineman that's a little more developmental, assuming Brian Thomas Jr. is not there, I just flip it and I go offensive line in the second round. Cooper Beebe with some guard tackle flexibility, obviously like Patrick Paul, those sorts of things that I mentioned with the number 2 trade option. So I'm curious to see where you guys fall on this. Do you want the slight drop down but not get into the second round, meaning you have to give up extra assets to get into the second round? Do you like having to forego the third round to not fall as far back to get to the Jaguars pick at number 17? Do you like the 22nd overall pick with the Philadelphia Eagles because we don't have to give up anything except for maybe a little bit of trade value sliding down, because we are not getting as much value, but you are getting a second round pick. Like really, that trade down to 22 is probably worth a second round pick plus, next year's third or something along those lines. But we're operating under like not best case scenario sort of options here. So let me know who you guys would select in these particular scenarios here. Or do you have a trade down that you think makes a crazy ton of sense? Maybe it's Seattle coming up and drafting the local kid, Michael Penix Jr. at number 10, and then you slide down to 16. Maybe that's the option. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm really fascinated to see what you guys have to say about this. And as always, Go Jets. Thank you guys so much for hitting the like and subscribe button on these videos. It goes a long way towards growing the channel. And then occasionally I get sponsors like this. So if you want to help support the sponsor of the channel, or maybe just get yourself some cool gear or some good discounts, you can click the link in the description down below. Today's sponsor, 𝐀𝐟𝐼𝐥𝐢𝐚, is going to give you 25% off your order using promo code JetsTalk. Link in the description down below. They've got gummies, THC syrup, THC seltzers. I just discovered these things. They are incredible. As someone who has been trying to cut down a little bit of their alcohol consumption and not, maybe feel as crummy the next day, this has been a godsend for me. Keep me nice and calm, cool, and collected, especially with all the hurdles that our Jets throw our way and all the headaches that we got to deal with as fans. So if you guys want to help support the channel, maybe get yourself a little bit of a discount as well. Support the sponsor of the channel, 𝐀𝐟𝐼𝐥𝐢𝐚. Thank you so much for watching the show.